Hello, my name is Toby Levin von Gleichen, visiting professor at King's College London and associate of Harvard's Hutchins Center for African and African American Research under Henry Louis Gates Jr. I welcome you today, together with my co-organizers, former director of the International Gender Studies Center at Lady Margaret Hall, University of Oxford, Dr. Maria Yashok, also a visiting professor at King's and a senior research associate of the Contemporary China Studies program in the Oxford School of Global and Area Studies. And the decorated alumna of King's College London, Dr. Comfort Momo, MBE, an FGM consultant and public health specialist employed for 35 years by the NHS and pioneer in the 1990s of the Well Woman clinics offering unparalleled care to FGM survivors. We hope you will engage with us and our speakers by communicating during presentations via the Q&A section, with comments desired as much as questions, assured that as many contributions as possible will be dealt with now and all will be archived. Dr. Comfort Momo will be moderating Q&A. Our call for papers and visions gathering intersectional and interdisciplinary research offering a holistic vision of debate about, quote, female-bodied texts and socio-political contexts, specifically for the first 3 meetings considering, quote, enduring patriarchal conditions, end quote, challenged by populism and democracy, or versus democracy, and the COVID-19 pandemic. I invite you in Q&A to consider the extent to which these considerations inform today's program. It's my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to the second of 10 virtual gatherings, inspired by a compelling need to address human rights abuses, specifically but not exclusively related to female genital mutilation. Cradled by King's Arts and Humanities Research Institute, we are crossing cultural contexts, homing in on distinctions and similarities where female bodies are contested, invaded, defended, and owned. In addition to today's webinar, you are invited to 8 that follow, ending on December 10th, and covering excision in the law, mothers and daughters, the FGM industry, gender identity and circumcision, sexual pleasure, beauty, and pain, and concluding with keynotes on racism, social media, and FGM studies. Today, we feature a broad geographical stretch. Working in Italy, Annagrazia Faraca shares her research in, quote, "This is not my fatherland, stories from the lives of Nigerian exiles." Filmmaker John Chua, presently in China, will inform us about, quote, FGM in one of the world's richest countries, Singapore. A midwife and founder of Beyond FGM, Cath Holland, a UK resident, works at the grassroots with Capstana Rodwo, a community-based organization in Pokot, Kenya, that aims to eradicate FGM. And she'll talk about, quote, what makes an intervention effective, giving the best and most sustainable outcomes to girls at risk of FGM. And last not least, with a diploma in community development and currently project coordinator for CAFGEM, a community-based organization, Lester Linti, in Breaking a Spiral of Girls' Disempowerment Among the Maasai in Kajiado County, will share his firsthand knowledge as a certified community facilitator, engaging and sensitizing groups including youths, elders, women, morons, and schoolgirls. To conclude, because COVID-19 has compelled us to gather in cyberspace despite a preference for collegial in-person contact, we want to ensure continuity and a future for exchanges and friendships that start here. So please interact and react by using Q&A. We look forward to 4 stimulating presentations followed by equally lively discussion. Thank you. And I turn the floor now over to Annagrazia in Italy.
Yes, thank you, Tobe. Thank you all. Let me say I'm very happy and excited to be here today with all of you for this second symposium. And I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me to this panel today. Let me also briefly introduce myself. First of all, welcome to my home. We are all connected with someone from somewhere. I'm connecting from Perugia in Italy. It's a city in central Italy, and I'm introducing myself and preparing for a PowerPoint sharing. Okay. Can you see this?
Yes, I can see it.
Yeah, you can see it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, just to check. So I've earned a PhD in humanities and social science here in Perugia with a thesis on FGM among immigrants communities in the Italian context. And right now I'm collaborating also with an NGO working for migrants integrations and rights. My contribution today is an extract of my research work carried out during the doctoral program, and I hope that my work could be useful for the outcomes of the symposium. Let me briefly introduce the research. The methodology: I conducted a qualitative research with 15 women asylum seekers coming from southern Nigeria and living in the city of Perugia, that I told you is a city in central Italy. All women interviewed, aged between 19 and 45 years old, have undergone the practice of FGM in Nigeria, and almost all of them have been trafficked for sexual exploitation. At the time of the research, conducted between 2015 and 2017, all were claimants waiting for the asylum claim outcomes from the national asylum authorities. The methodological tools I use for the research are in-depth interviews and focus group, using a transnational perspective and a gender-sensitive approach. The intention in my research has been to allow the women to free expression as active and central subjects in order to develop a vision from within of the people met, as opposed to the vision of these women as a mere object of investigation. The research object is to explore the migration routes and lives of these women in order to understand how and if migration process affects their system of opinions, attitudes, and meaning in relation to FGM. About the terminology, here I adopt, and in my research, I adopted the term FGM, the international terminology commonly in use. During the interviews with women, I used the term circumcision, as used by the interview women themselves. A brief overview on Nigeria related to the FGM situation.
Sorry to interrupt, Annagrazia.
Yeah.
The PowerPoint slide isn't showing. Something's gone wrong. Could you close it and open it, reshare it again?
Oh yes. So I close try to. Okay.
Stop sharing and then share again. That might work. Yeah.
Yeah. So now are you not
Yeah.
watching my screen?
So yeah,
so
nothing.
I go back to my PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Now you see it.
Yep.
Yeah, I try to make to open the presentation, but let me know if something went wrong with this.
Okay.
Maybe when I open.
Yeah, it might be.
It might be because it happens sometimes. It happens to me as another time with another program with Zoom.
Okay.
Can you see it?
I'm just seeing
No.
No, so maybe if you keep it just the window, it'll be okay.
Okay, yeah, it's better. I will take it like this.
At least we can see the slides, yeah.
Okay, I can wait. I can. Okay. Oh, I can open more the, okay.
Yeah, that's readable.
Okay. So I was introducing my research, and now I was moving to focus on Nigeria, on FGM in Nigeria. 18.4% of women aged between 15 and 49 years old report to have undergone some form of FGM. This rate has faced diminishing data from the last research on this country, because the last data before the last of the 2017, that is the data I'm showing you. Before, the data was 25%. So we are registering a less number of women who have undergone this practice in Nigeria. But the absolute number are still huge. 20 million women and girls in Nigeria have undergone FGM, and this is the 10% of the total global. 82% of women have undergone the practice before age of 5 years old, so it's really affecting child and young people. Type 1 and type 2 are the more widespread, and the practice is widespread both between Christian and Muslim communities across the country. Also, Nigeria, as other African countries, has emanated a law, the Violence Against Person Prohibition Act in 2015, but updated. We don't have proceeding right now, so the law has not been applied, is not enforced at the moment. The most widespread justification for female genital mutilation in Nigeria is the concern that contact between the clitoris and the baby's head during the birth is lethal or harmful for the baby. And this is one thing that also my women interview stated. Other considerations are cleanliness or hygiene, prevention of promiscuity, prevent genital leaching, enhancing fertility, and fulfilled womanhood, ensure marriageability. And there is also a concern that men refuse to marry women who have not been circumcised. So let's move to my research. As I told, I focus on life stories of these women to focus a vision from within. And today I want to focus with you on two main issues emerged during my study. The first one is trafficking of human beings, and the second is female genital mutilation, of course. This main thing that I decided to focus today with you, I have to say that it was an expected element during my research study, but it has emerged as an important issue. In fact, this has been a first common element in the stories of the women I met. And the element in common was the madam, a female figure. She's not a member of the family. She's a woman that offers help to girls, to assist to their education and support efforts to build a future. This figures is simply called exactly the madam, or simply the woman. The figure of the madam is peculiar to the Nigerian trafficking for the purpose of sexual exploitation. They are women who, former victims of trafficking and slaves themselves, when they finish paying the debt, start to work to buy a girl and then make her become the slave and force her to pay the debt, exactly as they had been forced in the past. So their social mobility of this madam passes through the exploitation of other women. They are therefore members of criminal organization who recruits young girls into trafficking and international sexual exploitation. From the literature review, we know that the approach with potential victims is characterized as being a kind of personal approach and based on false promises. Young girls are attracted by the promises of a better future and the opportunity to continue their education, and this aspiration are also viewed with favor by their families because they are perceived as the only chance to leave Nigeria in the hope of a comfortable life for the girl and for their family. But according to research conducted in Nigeria, victims of trafficking are often trafficked with the full consent of their families. Many families are ready to sacrifice a daughter to fulfill the dream of a better life for the family who remained in Nigeria. So the family involved are willing to pay the price and sacrifice a family member. An important aspect in the trafficking of Nigerian women is the secret magical religious attachment. It's an element which at a symbolic and psychological level firmly subjugates the women and binds their destiny to the commitment undertaken, the debt incurred, and the will of the madam, the trafficker. It's a magical practice called voodoo or juju rite. The girl is made to swear that she will repay the entire amount of the debt, an amount that never corresponds to real cost of the crossing. Today, it is around 2050, 25,000 and 60,000 euro. So the girl is made to swear that she will repay the amount of the debt, that it's very huge, and will never betray the person who is helping her to leave her country, so will never report the madam to the police once she will arrive in Europe. To bind payment and loyalty, the native doctor, there is a traditional figure of a herbalist healer. It's like a priest that is doing the rite of juju, uses certain psychological parts, physiological, part of the girl, pubic or armpit hair, nails, menstrual blood, and so on, kept in the shrines and used as a threat and proof of being able to reach her wherever she is. The strength of this ritual and oaths expressed are as warning or threats of it's due to the belief system widespread among the people of southern Nigeria. According to animist cults, if commitment made during the rite are not maintained, one risks becoming a victim of evil that can lead to madness and death, not only for oneself, but also for one's family. So the risk of being involved in trafficking and sexual exploitation in Nigeria for this girl is very high. The role prescribed to women within Nigeria's society constitutes a decisive risk factor in the analysis of the phenomenon of trafficking in human beings. Lack of equal opportunities between men and women, feminization of poverty, the need for women to take care of their families in a country where 62% of the population lives in a condition of extreme poverty. According to IOM, the International Organization for Migration, 80% of Nigerian women arriving in Italy are potential victims of trafficking for sexual exploitation. And in fact, almost all women I interviewed were involved in trafficking for sexual exploitation, unfortunately. Now I will move to the other main theme of my presentation. I will focus on several aspects of female genital mutilation. The first one is the taboo. The women I met are not used to talking about the practice of circumcision as they refer to genital mutilation, often considered a taboo in their families and communities. I want to also to tell you that I decided to insert some expert extract of my research in interview excerpts of my research in these slides, in order to give you the richness of expression that I found in the body of the text. So you can read the excerpt of the interview. And except for some who said that they had spoken with their mother on the subject, for the others, the occasion of the interview was the first time they had faced the question. So as Blessing stated, we don't talk about it. No one has told me, let's talk about it before. While a further confirmation that cutting is not a topic of discussion among women emerged during the focus group, during which the participants realized that not all women have their genital mutilated, as you can read on the Joy sentences. I think everybody in the world does it. I don't know that it's a crime in some part of the world. I never knew that it's not even existing anywhere. I never knew until yesterday. I was shocked. We can consider this statement as a possible effect of migration. The chance to meet and talk freely with other women, compatriots or otherwise, helped to initiate a discussion on the issue and to acquire a different awareness about FGM. The findings suggest that not only is the subject itself seldom treated in the family or in the group, but also that little or nothing is known about the experience of the view of other women. The theme is not conceived as a theme of interest or a pressing issue. It is taken for granted that all women carry this distinguished mark, which is perceived as normal and natural, because it pertains to tradition. And here is the second point of my focus on FGM. The practice belongs on tradition. On the reason for mutilating women's genital, all agree that that it is practice that belongs to tradition. It is a consolidated practice handed down from mother to daughter as a commonly accepted intergenerational practice, and as such is not called into question. As Joy said, this is normal things they're doing. Where I come from, we see it as a homage, something you have to do. So it's considered a duty to be fulfilled. And so on. It's because our tradition, you must circumcise a child. That's how we grow up in our family. All our family, we are circumcised. So when we born our baby will be circumcised too. They must circumcise them. It's the law, so we cannot say no. But what is mean for tradition? From the data collected and the extensive literature, it emerged that the female mutilation is intended to regulate the women's body, whose sexuality is perceived as a lustful instinct that must be subjugated, perceived as something immoral that can only be practiced within marriage for reproductive purpose. In particular, the clitoris is considered by men to be an aggressive and menacing organ, as the women themselves, who, through the act of mutilation, avert the risk of infertility and promiscuity. And Blessing state, it said that if a woman is not circumcised, she will need sex every time. But if she is circumcised, she will enjoy it without feeling anything. That's why I think it's good that I'm circumcised. Also, Jennifer states, some people, when they grow up, even if they circumcise, they always have urge for sex. So to me, I now come to understand that this thing is crazy. It's not working. Like me, they circumcise me, but I have feeling for sex. I can have sex anytime I want. Such motivations are characterized by the importance attached to female sexuality in order to assure the protection of virginity and control of chastity, considered essential elements to ensure fitness for marriage and purity of the women. So the FGM phenomena act as a form of control of the body and sexuality that has serious physical and psychological consequences as an act of subordination to male domination in social context characterized by patriarchal structure, and is an expression of gender inequality that assigns women a subordinate position in society. The regulation of sexuality and reproduction in women becomes a group expression of identity. Women and their body are the symbolic cultural center where societies register their moral system. The body of women are shaped within and across cultural and social affiliation dynamics. The body thus becomes a space of social construction in which social relations are enacted. Another point of the FGM focus with the women interview that emerged during the interviews with the women is the system of opinion adopted by women about FGM linked to the Italian law prohibiting genital mutilation. It becomes a decisive factor in the system of opinions and attitudes adopted by women toward FGM practices. On learning that the practice is considered a criminal offense in Italy, both in the course of the interview and during the focus group, the initial reaction of the women was of amazement and dejection, because none of them was aware of the legislation. And so also Joy state, I think everybody in the world does it. I don't know that it's a crime in some part of the world. I never knew that it's not even existing anywhere. So great emphasis is given to the role of the criminal law in Italy. In fact, all the women surveyed promptly declared the intention to comply with the regulation of the country in which they reside. A position that highlights the differences between wanting and having to adapt to the legal provisions, generating a sense of resignation and impotence due to the fact of being a foreign country, not be at home. As success state, I will follow the law, the rules and regulation in Italy. I don't have any option. I don't have any option. This is not my fatherland. The position taken by Nigerian women is closely tied to their legal status as asylum seeker. They are all waiting, as I told you during the interview process, they were all waiting for the outcome of the asylum application from the relevant Italian authorities at that moment. However, it must be emphasized that this distancing from the practice is not the result of a questioning of the reasons that are the basis of its perpetuation, such as the control of women or the possible risk to health and doubtful effectiveness of the practice. Rather, it is the effect of fear of incurring penalties due to the legislation that acts as a deterrent to the practice of cutting. But the migration condition changed the outlook. The desire not to have problems in the country of new residents and the need to integrate into Italian society pushes them to take a stand, even against the family in Nigeria, and to reject the pressure for female circumcision. The condition of no longer living in the home country frees the migrant from following tradition or the wishes of the family, as women Gloria states. I have already respect them, referring to tradition. If I'm there, I will do what the family say I should do. But since I'm not there, it's not compulsory that I must do what my tradition wants, since I'm not in that country again. So she, referring to her mother-in-law, don't have rights to question me because of this circumcision issue. Say, why did I not do it, or why did I not come back home and do it? No. And I shift to the conclusion. I didn't check the time I had still, but in the life stories gathered, what emerged on several occasions a strong contradiction in what is expressed about the practice and the personal opinion about it. The women are in favor of its continuation because it is deemed as a good practice, but at the same time, they don't understand its effectiveness and don't want to incur in penalties due to Italian legislation. This position testified to an initial questioning of FGM on the choice to perpetuate it or not and how necessary it is. Taking into account the migratory context in which these women are now living their daily lives and planning their future, it is important to assess the impact of migration in a changed social context on their opinion, attitudes, behavior towards the practice. It can be assumed that this dichotomy can evolve in two distinct orientations. On one hand, it could exacerbate the position in favor of the tradition, while on the other hand, it may encourage a process of abandonment of the practice altogether. In particular, in the course of the migration experience, FGM practice may acquire relevance as an act of conservation of ethnic identity and social acceptance. Adhering to tradition meets the needs for a stable sense of collective belonging. However, a different socio-cultural environment greatly influences the modes of practice and manifestation of the culture of origin by promoting a process of redefinition of traditional models, cultural and symbolic categories. Women do play an important role in this context, which opposes identity transformation against cultural defense. The positions are still very mixed between those who support the practice and live out their tradition as a natural occurrence, as something of which to be proud, and those who oppose the practice because they perceive it as a form of violence and oppression. But migration context, these values and categories are redefined and renegotiated because cultures and what they bring are not static, but dynamic and changing. So I'm conclude my presentation, but I would like to conclude by quoting Professor Barbara Harrebond, whom I had the honor to meet in Oxford, who stressed in a milestone research for the refugees study in Pershing Head, she stressed the belief that research on refugees should be used for refugees. And I keep this teaching and I try in everyday life, especially now that I'm working on the ground with an NGO and with the asylum seeker, I'm trying every day to turn these words into action. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Annagrazia. That was quite informative and passionately delivered. We turn now to John Chua, who will take us to another world.
I'm going to share my desktop, which includes a PowerPoint, and I'm going to speak fairly fast so I could make it true. So if there's anything you don't understand, do you see my PowerPoint now?
No.
No?
Yes.
Let me share.
Yes. Oh, yes. Or a minute ago, I saw it.
Yeah, you just have to wait a second for it to come through.
Yes? Do you see it now?
No.
Do you see my PowerPoint?
Not yet.
I'm sorry. Do you see it now?
No.
Mm,
John, it was there, and then it disappeared.
do you see it now?
Once you click share, it takes about 5 seconds to come through, so it won't be immediate.
Do you see it now?
No, not yet.
I don't know what's going on.
Mm.
It came on a minute. It came on earlier. Just
Mhm.
keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, is it showing that you're currently sharing?
Okay. How about now?
Not yet.
Oh, that's a disappointment.
Yeah, it is.
Nothing?
No, not yet.
Mm-mm.
Have you selected to share from your side?
Yes, yes. So I click on share desktop, right? Uh-huh.
Yeah,
How about now? Yes?
no, nothing yet. Oh, there it is. All right, so don't stop it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we got it. So
Okay.
We got it.
So I'm going to go full screen on it. Is that okay? You see it as a full screen?
yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start now, and I'm going to try to time myself. This presentation examines FGM in Singapore, one of the world's richest and most developed countries. And it's based on 3 aspects of my research here. First, I carried out an online survey of 119 Muslim women in Singapore. Second, I conducted a series of interviews of FGM survivors. Third, I visited 2 medical clinics to gather information on how they would cut an imaginary baby daughter. I was born and partly raised in Singapore. From a young age, my family took me to live in Europe, the Middle East, and Australia. But I returned to Singapore often, and at 18 served in its military. I thought I was quite knowledgeable about that city-state. Despite having extended family and friends in Singapore who were raised as Muslims, as well as having worked on a campaign to end FGM in Kurdish Iraq, I was ignorant about FGM in Singapore until about 6 years ago. Singapore was expelled from the Malaysian Federation in 1965 and took a path of economic development that is leaps ahead of its neighbors. Although the Malay culture is similar in both countries, Singapore's modernity and economic success have influenced its Malay minority and FGM practices. I first became interested in Singapore and FGM following a 2014 news piece on BBC's Inside Out, featuring an investigative reporter in the UK ringing a clinic in Singapore to arrange for her British daughter, to get cut. Over the phone, the reporter got the clinic to agree to perform the operation, but that was the extent of the investigation. I wanted more conclusive details. Inspired by that reporter, I decided to conduct research in Singapore. At that time, I was working with the Kurdish NGO Wadi to end FGM in Iraq and the wider Middle East. At first, I was at a loss on how to investigate FGM in Singapore. At the end of 2015, I organized with Wadi, using support from the Wallace Global Fund, the first ever FGM conference held in Singapore at the offices of the local NGO AWARE, which stands for Association of Women for Action and Research. Anthropologist Gabrielle Maranci was the first scholar to study FGM in Singapore, concluding that FGM is a mark of Malay Muslim identity in that country. She published an article in 2015 referring to FGM as female genital operation, or FGO, which for her is more conducive for non-judgmental discussions. Indeed, in Singapore, the Malay Muslims do not see the tradition as FGM. Instead, they colloquially call it either female circumcision or sunat perempuan, or simply sunat. She reported on how the practice is widespread among its Muslim minority, yet within the spheres of mass media and academia, the local practice is almost never mentioned, and it's even seldom discussed among Singaporean Muslims. Only Muslim Malay women undergo FGM, which makes it a real mark of distinction even among other Muslim non-Malay women. In multicultural Singapore, Islam is the religion of not only Malay minorities, but also of some Singaporean Pakistanis, Indians, and Chinese, and people of mixed heritage. While the vast majority of Singaporean Muslims follow the Sunni Shafi school of thought, there are also small numbers of Muslims from other sects. Her research involving extensive interviews within the Malay Muslim community of Singapore led her to conclude that Singaporean female FGM survivors do not experience life-altering consequences as a result of the operation, and that the government does not interfere on FGM issue in order to maintain the delicate multicultural requirements of that city-state. But there is no escaping that FGM in Singapore, what happens in Singapore is FGM if we apply the WHO classification. Strictly speaking, FGM Singapore fits into one of the following types: WHO type 1 or type 1A, with the possibility of some type 4. My survey employed the snowball method of attracting respondents, with friends asking friends to complete the survey. Apart from a few teenage respondents still in secondary school, only 3 respondents had not pursued further education beyond secondary high school. Given that the survey was initially released to supporters of AWARE, and they in turn shared with their friends and family, respondents in the survey likely already have positive predispositions towards feminist positions. AWARE is a leading advocacy group for gender equality in the region, with supporters who are generally fairly well educated. Although I requested specifically Muslim women to complete the survey, a handful of non-Muslims also participated, making 136 the total number of respondents. 119 Muslim women responded, with the vast majority of them well-educated Malay Muslim women. Of particular interest to me were the outliers, FGM survivors who were not typically Malay Muslims of the Shafi'i tradition in Sunni Islam. Among the survivors were 2 Indian Singaporeans, 1 Pakistani Singaporean, 7 of mixed Malay Indian heritage, 1 of Chinese Malay heritage, 1 of Indian Malay heritage, and 1 Malay of Shia heritage. Of note is 1 18-year-old Eurasian who did not specify her religion, but was nonetheless cut by a GP doctor. Although these numbers are small, these 13 outliers indicate that Moransi's conclusion about the demographics of FGM survivors in Singapore are premature. Unlike Moransi, I believe there are long-term consequences for some Singaporean FGM survivors. Indeed, just the cutting of the clitoral hood can be dangerous. In my 15 August 2015 interview with Dr. Abdul Rahim Ruzi, a Saudi gynecologist, professor, and surgeon who has treated countless patients with FGM, he expressed a negative opinion of type 1A. Cutting or removing of the clitoral hood of baby girls is a dangerous procedure, which is nearly impossible to achieve when performed by traditional FGM practitioners. Simply put, the girls' delicate body parts are not sufficiently mature or big enough for such precise cutting. One Singaporean mother who took her daughter to be cut by a doctor at a clinic expressed her dismay at the botched operation in an online forum. I noticed that there was something dangling. To my horror, it seems the labia was cut on the top and it's blue black. I'm sorry, that slide is missing. Let me just go back. And it's blue black. Went back to doctor. When she saw the cut, she kept saying that it's the labia. She claimed the labia might reattach. Then before I got out the door, she admitted she might have cut too much. and apologize. From my survey of 136 women, 44 said they were not bothered by the procedure. Only 9 respondents definitively concluded surviving FGM led to negative medical consequences. A further 16 respondents felt that there might be negative consequences of the cutting, but are unaware of them. A respondent to my survey said, yes, I'm extremely bothered by it. I'm bothered by that something was done to me against my will when I have no ability to protest at all. When I found out the same thing was being done to my niece, I was aghast. I only found out when I was 21, and I'm upset that I have not been told about this bodily modification till now. I think as well, because my clitoral hood is gone, this means that my clitoris might have been desensitized, and so I should actually be able to experience more sexual pleasure than currently, but I will never know. Another respondent said, I once asked my non-Muslim gynecologist if there was anything missing or different about my parts. She said she couldn't see anything distinctively different. So I assume in my case, the circumcision did not affect me too much. I do wonder at times if I've lost something because of that, since it's difficult for me to achieve orgasm. In addition to the survey, I also interviewed a small number of Singaporean FGM survivors, recording our discussions on video. The first interviewee I approached was someone I had known for much of my life, but who had never previously spoken to me about her distressing story of being cut. Like in many other places around the world, FGM is simply not a topic openly discussed, especially between men and women. Anita, not her real name, has a story that's unusual in modern Singapore. Now in her late 50s, she was cut by a traditional midwife when she was around 8 years old. FGM in Singapore, when she was around 10 years old. FGM in Singapore is generally performed before the age of 2. Of the 70 surveyed respondents who could remember or confirm the age at which they were cut, only 8 of them experienced FGM after the age of 2, and only 2 of them were cut when they were 10 or older. When Anita asked her mother why she was cut later than other girls, her mother simply said she had forgotten to get the procedure done earlier. Anita told me, my grandmother was there, my mother and the midwife. I was asked to lay down and they cut me. It was a sharp pain. I think they had to hold me down to some extent. It was over within minutes. This is from an interview from 15 January 2016. Of the FGM Singaporean survivors surveyed, 23 reported their cutter was a traditional midwife, also known as a bidan, or a woman experienced with cutting. 13 women out of these 23 were 30 years or younger, with many of them university students. This suggests that the traditional role of the bidan has not yet completely disappeared in modern Singapore. In Malay communities from Singapore to southern Thailand, the bidan is the traditional midwife of a village. According to research by Murley in 2010, the career of a bidan involves the transmission of knowledge within a family, usually following a matrilineal descent. In my investigation of bidan practices in Malay culture of Southeast Asia, it's clear that she has the respect of her community. Anita's bidan was called a doctor by the family, although she was not trained in modern medical sciences. The bidan's work in facilitating childbirth is imbued with mystical acts and rituals that are likely pre-Islamic traditions. These could include a magical incantation to expel and retain placenta, according to Murley in 2010. The placenta is then buried outside the house. Other rituals associated with the act of cutting can include ritual use of rice and a focus on offering an exact amount of money that I conclude is a form of superstitious numerology. In my interview with a bidan on January 3rd, 2016. I'm not an Islamic scholar, but given that FGM is not mentioned in the Quran and not supported by all Muslim sects, and has association with non-Islamic supernatural practices, at least in Southeast Asia, can a case be made that FGM is actually anti-Islamic? My second interviewee was Filza Sumatono, who is a project manager at WARE. She told me of pressure within Malay families to make sure female babies undergo FGM. In her case, her mother was against the procedure, but her grandmother forced her hand. She only found out about being a survivor as a teenager. She told me, "I do find it very disturbing that something was taken away from me so easily." She explained to me that the Singaporean government has a hand in permitting FGM. The Islamic Council is financially supported by the government, and the Mufti is selected by the country's president. The Mufti issue fatwas and sanction sermons. Before 2016, the Islamic Council's website featured a statement mandating FGM for all Muslim females. My third interviewee is Zarifa Anwar, who also works at Aware. She says, a lot of people say that the procedure that was done to us was extremely minor or even negligible. But she dismissed the notion that FGM done in Singapore is slight and insignificant. Zarifa said, the fact that I had gone through FGM had never even crossed my mind because it is not something that people talk about at all. Turns out it's such a widespread thing. Me and all my cousins, my aunts, my mom, and my everyone. But beyond physical, there's also socio-psychological damage of FGM. The cultural or religious justification for the practice seems superficial, and the underlying raison d'etre for FGM is surely deeper than the facile explanations it presents. Regardless of whether it's type 1, 2, 3, or 4, across many cultures where FGM is practiced, the most common reason given is that it suppresses female desire for sex. And this is no different for Singapore. On the one hand, supporters of FGM, including Singaporean respondents in my survey, claim that the practice does no harm. On the other hand, female sexuality is presented as dangerous, which I feel is something that would cause psychological harm to young girls when it's presented as dangerous. There's no evidence FGM decreases sexual desires. I would suggest it might lead to sexual frustration, if not also sexual rebellion. By far, the highest number of teenage and unwed pregnancy in Singapore is among Malay females. As Zarifa explains, our whole culture of chastity and the fact that sexuality is a very dirty thing in our community, our bodies aren't ours. It doesn't belong to us. We're not allowed to masturbate or experience sexual pleasures. The fact that it was done without our consent and done so young that we have absolutely no memory of it at all is really a violation of our human rights, a violation of our own bodily autonomy. The last part of my investigation led me to visit 2 medical clinics to determine how the cutting is carried out. After the aforementioned BBC News report, Singaporean clinics were no longer agreeing to cut British girls when you call them. But when you visit the clinics, the story is different. At the first clinic, I spoke to a doctor who explained the procedure. I arrived with a Malay friend who posed as my wife. I specifically mentioned I brought a daughter from Britain, that I was warned in Britain not to seek such an operation abroad. As the doctor explained to me, what we normally do here is to make a nick at the clitoral skin, drawing a little bit of blood. There's no anesthesia, and the cut is done with a pair of scissors. The cost of the operation is about 20 Singaporean dollars, or US $15. At the second clinic, we spoke to a pharmacist who co-manages the health center with his FGM performing doctor wife. Again, I went with my Malay friend who poses my wife. This time, I had an imaginary American baby daughter who needed to be cut. We discussed the appropriate age to get this operation done. Apparently, the older she is, the more troublesome the procedure might be. As he explained to me, because they're older, they kick more. If she's older, please bring someone strong to hold down her legs, because the doctor is not strong enough. I came to understand that this is not a painless and danger-free procedure, as a kicking child could cause a knife to slip. It's a crime in the UK for parents to take their girls abroad for FGM. Given these concerns in the UK, I had a meeting with Paul Broom, MBE, who's Director of Political Affairs at the British High Commission in Singapore. I showed the evidence I gathered and discussed ways to stop this practice. Despite the UK having made the single largest donation to stop FGM globally. In the case of Singapore, Paul Broom was of the opinion that the best course of action is preventing British parents from breaking the law, and it's not possible to convince a rich British ally like Singapore to outlaw the practice. To summarize, I present arguments today to show that so-called minor or negligible FGM in Singapore is not always without harmful consequences. Although 25% of FGM survivors surveyed said they would continue the practice, a considerable number also voiced concerns about its detrimental effects. My survey of Muslim women in Singapore contradicts the notion repeated by Maransi that only Malay Shafi Sunnis Muslims participated in FGM. But I also make the argument that the mystical rituals done by traditional cutters would render these FGM practices non-Islamic. Ostensibly, Singapore clinics do not offer female genital cutting to non-citizens. However, when you visit them, the cutting is absolutely available to foreign baby girls. FGM in Singapore is a complex issue that deserves further study. Singapore is an example of FGM hiding in plain sight. And these are some of my references basically. And that's it for today. My presentation, my talk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
We were all absorbed in the new material that you were giving us, and you stayed very nicely within the time. We will now turn to Cath Holland. Cath, you're still with us, I assume?
Yeah. Now I've got to try and get my desktop, haven't I?
Okay.
I can't get rid of John.
Brian, can you
Just click on yours, then John will disappear. That's my understanding.
I've released control. I don't have control.
Yeah. You just click on yours, Kat.
Yeah. It's got the little wheel coming up.
Okay.
It's coming.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit slow. The computer's a bit slow. Right. Is it there? Can you see it?
No, we're still looking at John's bibliography, which is very rich, and I'm happy to have it. But oh, something good.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. Is there?
Yes.
Oh, phew. I'm a technophobe, I'm afraid. Yes, so I'm trying to answer the question, what makes an intervention effective, giving the best and most sustainable outcomes to girls at risk of FGM? I'm a midwife, as Toby introduced me earlier, and I did voluntary service overseas in Kenya. I worked for 2 years teaching midwifery in Pokot, which is in the northwest of Kenya, in quite a remote area. And at that time, 1998 to 2000, the FGM practice amongst the Pokot was almost 100% prevalence. So these are my friends on the left, Miriam and Rhoda Lodio, who Comfort knows because they came to the UK in 2005. I felt very strongly when I was in Kenya that the traffic's only one way. It's the largely white people going over, as I was doing my voluntary service overseas, and oh, well, you know, we used to do this in the UK with, say, delivery practices. Oh, but we've changed it now. Now you need to do it this way. And change has to come from within, as we know that, and change happens where it's at the grassroots, where it needs to happen. And I felt it was very important that Miriam and Rhoda came over here, and were very empowered and inspired. We went to meet Comfort at Guy's and St Thomas's. We met FGM specialist, other FGM specialist midwives. We met Layla Hussein, who's a very prominent anti-FGM activist in the UK and internationally. And we went to Liverpool Women's Hospital. We met anti-FGM specialist midwives there and obstetricians, which was all very empowering for Miriam and Rhoda, so that when they went home, they were, because they're both survivors, they're the generation that FGM was a complete social norm to them. They kind of never imagined that it would be ever finished. People used to say to me, oh, it'll take 100 years for FGM to end in Pocot. We'll never end it. So, as I said, they were very empowered when they went back, and together we formed the group. Originally we were Capsteno Rotwo. We have evolved now, and Evelyn, who you can see here in this picture with me, she's now the manager of a CBO, which is the Centre for Indigenous Child Rights, with Miriam and Rhoda are on her board of management. They've become a very cohesive, strong, sustainable, which really goes to show that you have to build a team within your organisation at the grassroots, rather than people from the UK going over, change your practices, do it like this, this is wrong. We haven't taken that approach at all. We're very much about, and this is all to do with sustainability, we are very much about working at the grassroots, which you can see from this picture again. It's very informal, we're under a tree, we're literally at the grassroots, as you can see. So then we're trying to, that was, I think that was a spontaneous gathering where we had arrived in a village on market day, and that's how our programme works. We've created a model so that we will go into a new village. We move from village to village and sensitise people, usually on market day. We make contact with the local chiefs and the elders, sometimes the religious people, and we're always invited to come back. Then we can come back and start our formal training, which you can see here. Comfort will recognise the doll and the pelvis, which is our midwife's stock in trade teaching tool. And you see the little girl standing on the chair. We can show very easily, this is a training to, oh sorry, that's to the, oh I think I seem to have lost one of my slides there. Never mind. This was a training to the local midwives or traditional birth attendants, and many of them are also the cutters. So we start our training with the local midwives, and it's very easy to teach them. They can see straight away that this young girl here is impossible for a baby to pass through her pelvis, and we talk about the dangers of childbirth. So it's not that, and that was why we decided to call ourselves Beyond FGM, because we are, it's obviously the FGM Act itself is cruel, dangerous, barbaric, and all the rest of it. Even girls can sometimes die when they're actually being circumcised. But then there are all sorts of problems subsequently. The obstructed labour, we teach the people about the economic aspects of that is going to cost them more money to go for an operation. And then the fistula, which I don't know if everybody understands what a fistula is caused by the obstructed labour because the baby won't pass through the girl's pelvis. Damage is caused to the bladder so that the urine leaks through the vagina. Worst case scenario can also happen from through the rectum as well. But the bladder and vaginal fistula is more common. And the next slide shows, as I said, this was really why we are beyond FGM, because we're looking towards a world obviously without FGM, but also to try to help to deal with the problems therein. And the girl on the left, on the right here with me, Sabina, I met her at a community celebration that we were invited to, and she was identified by one of our group members as having a fistula, and her mother died many years ago. Then she was just staying with her elderly father, extremely poor. Agnes said they had practically nothing, and she had given up all hope. She just used to lie around most of the day because obviously standing up urine was running out of her body. So we got her referred to Eldoret, where there is a free service for fistula repair, and I met her then after on one of my return visits to Pocot, and you can see how happy she is there. She's like a new person, and now that she's had the fistula repaired. And then the picture on the left, at that same community event, was a woman wearing one of our t-shirts from a previous training that we'd had. So that was good to see the message being carried on the t-shirt. So the next slide is, I'll just say a little bit about it and then I'll let it run itself, because it's kind of, you don't really need an interpretation, a translation, because it's obvious from the woman's expressions what's happening, because we all, in the training with the TBAs, the traditional birth attendants or local midwives, we always ask, is there anybody here who's delivered a woman who hasn't been cut? And there are usually a few, and obviously us trainers, we've delivered, most of us are midwives, and we've delivered women that have not been cut, because there are so many myths and superstitions around that. I think Annagrazia mentioned it before, that if the midwife touches the clitoris, then she can either be made blind or her husband can die. So many myths surrounding that. So we asked in this particular training, had anybody delivered anybody who had, and then this lady, she's actually called Dr. Ryle. She has her own clinic, although she's not a fully qualified, but she's highly respected in the community as the job that she does. So this is Dr. Ryle, and she is demonstrating. She spontaneously volunteered to show us a woman who just turned up in labour, and obviously the woman wasn't cut, and what she's saying is she just adopted this position herself, and then the baby just came out, was born very quickly. So then she had to hold the baby, then she had to try and cut the cord, and it was very easy, and it just happened like that. I hope you'll enjoy this video.
Her position.
that's just an example of our work with the local midwives. And as I said, also we usually say, is anybody here who does cutting? And usually I think one of the last, we usually have about 70 to 80 midwives, and often there'll be about 10 that will own up to being cutters. So we bring that into the conversation, and then at the end, the women usually then say that they're going to stop the cutting. We're also involving men. Again, we have men's forums. You can see the guy on the right, he is wearing a t-shirt from a men's forum that he'd previously attended, Men End FGM. And the young men who are, because we have to convince this new generation to marry uncut girls, because that's another superstition, that the young men are traditionally feel that they have to marry circumcised girls. They're not allowed to marry them until they are cut. But obviously a new generation are coming along. These guys are at university, and so they came to speak at our final ceremony a couple of years back. Also, and more to, again, dispelling myths. These, because if a girl hasn't been cut, she's not allowed to cook for the men, and the men won't eat the food that she's cooked anyway if she does cook it. So this was another part of the final ceremony after the girls had attended their alternative rite of passage ceremony. We got the cakes made, and then the girls fed the cake to the men, and the men quite happily ate it, and nothing happened to any of them. So that was another very successful way of dispelling myths. Again, this is a final day of a men's forum that we held, and this guy that you can see with the feather, he is a very senior elder, and he's performing the ceremony at the last day of the men's forum. And again, I think you'll just see from the video, it's a little bit long, I'm afraid, but it's worth it because you can see the depth of feeling amongst the men that he is creating by his powerful speeches and the responses from all the other men. And he's holding some twigs that then form like a cleansing ritual. But if you watch carefully, you'll see him actually throw the knife. So he's asking the community, and he's speaking to the children. So what do you want, the knife or the pen? He talks about a pen and going to school. Anyway, here we go.
Kath, excuse me, it's one of your moderators. This is Toby. The video has frozen my screen. And I'm wondering if we shouldn't, because you are short on time, you have 2 minutes, actually, for the 20. If we can proceed to the next two slides.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice. Sorry, my screen's completely gone blank. Well, Toby, can you hear me? Toby?
We can hear you. Yes.
Yes, I can hear you. I had to unmute myself to tell you that I did hear you.
Yeah. I can't even move. I don't know what's happened. I don't know if it's my internet connection.
Yeah.
I can't even. I've just got that wheel thing, you know.
Right. Well, you know what I suggest? Please summarize for us. I'm hoping that I have a few questions for you in the Q&A, and that's the reason why I don't want to cut that too short. If you would summarize, and then we will have 20 minutes for Lester and 20 minutes for discussion.
Sure.
The way things are going.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
thank
I
you.
suppose the question that I was trying to answer was about sustainable interventions, and if enough investment has been made. So, according to some UNICEF reports, there's been a lot of investment in data gathering, and so what we don't want to, and I feel that there's a lot. It's like the white empiricist figure counting bodies, and it's almost like, well, this is what they do, and this is how many of them that do this, rather than actually working on the ground. And so it's almost like the UN and their bodies go in as eyes, we're going in as ears, and really we're finding that. Just see if I've got anything else that I really wanted to say. That basically a massive investment in surveillance, and the change isn't happening at the grassroots, basically, where change happens. And we are finding with our model that then, like, for example, the TBAs that we ask about, if any of them are cutters, then they've been to the next ceremony the following year, and we were told categorically that none of all those women who vowed to stop cutting, that none of them have gone back to the cutting, and that no girls in that area were cut. We also know that from one of our members, who is the head teacher of a primary school, and in the last few years he's seen the girls who are carrying on to the last year of primary school, which is class 8. He's seen those numbers increasing. So we know that we're very confident that this model that we've created is working. And yeah, basically.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure that there's going to be discussion in the Q&A. As I mentioned, I have a few things that I'll project, but it is time now to hear also from Kenya, from Lester Linti. If you would take the floor, please.
Thanks. Good afternoon once again, since I want to present my slides, but still Cath, PowerPoint is still on.
If you go ahead and share Lester, it will replace Cath's.
Yeah. Can I share mine?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, I'm Lester from Kenya. I just want to share. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I was to share about the spiral disempowerment among the Maasai girls in Kajiado, that's Kenya. And you see my picture there, that is me. And the girls there, you see the environment can tell you there is no hope for that girls. And then I want to share about the next picture is about the spiral, FGM and the spiral of women disempowerment. Our girls, the beginning of our girls usually begin from, the spiral begin from when girls undergo the FGM. When a girl undergoes the FGM, then that is where we have the girls graduate now to have, as the Maasai community, the girl, when they are being circumcised, is a rite of passage, is whereby the girls get matured. Now they recognize the girl as matured, despite whether she is under 18 years or she is a young child. But at that point, we recognize now, since now she has undergone the cut, we recognize that girl is a woman, she's a full woman, she can do what other full women can do. So that's where now we have a girl undergone FGM, start being engaging in sex, and will be having early pregnancy cases. And then definitely, since now she's a woman, she's recognized as a woman, she'll be forced and get married. Since now she'll be forced because she don't have to consent by herself. It's somebody else who is have to do that. Can you get me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Now you see the girls didn't graduate after that. When they undergo the early marriages and forced marriages and early pregnancy, definitely their life to continue for education, it will definitely end. So there will be cases of girls drop out. There will be cases of no education, and then number 4, that is proceeding of that spiral. There will be no economic empowerment because now the school. The school has just ended for that girls, no continuous for education. Definitely, there will be no skill to do any other job. There will be no even skill to do any other business. They have no exposure. So economically, that person will be definitely empowered, less empowered. Then after that, we see that the continuation of that spiral, when there is no economic empowerment, definitely that family of that girl where she's being married, and possibly most of them being married by elders, very elderly men, or very young men of even of their age. So you find there will be a lot of poverty in that family, and even those girls will be voiceless. Some of them you find they are taking care of the family after the elders. Those men who marry at the very late stage died, and even that girl will be left alone taking care of the family. You find that those girls or those women, they have no decisions making for themselves. There are no sexual reproduction health rights. They cannot decide of anything. And you find is that going back, after they go to maturity stage, they become elderly women, and then they start again practicing FGM at the same people coming back to practice FGM. So their cycle continue. And then you find now, yes, you see that the female genital mutilations, at our community, you see those girls, very young girls, non-schooling, and possibly when they undergo the cut, and you see a young girl being married by a very young man. Also, that family, there is no hope for that family because possibly that girl has not gone to school, the boy has not gone to school, and just because of FGM, just those girls, the young girls you see there, they are just waiting to undergo their cut. You see reservely there, just waiting for them to undergo. And then after that graduation, definitely they go to get married. And when they get married off, there will be no hope for that family at all. And then I have now come to our interventions. That is where you have for us, we do advocate for girls to undergo the alternative rite of passage. You see me there leading girls for the alternative rite of passage, and thus compared to that slides, the ones with the undergoing the being empowered, they are being educated. You take us some few days, and then have these girls undergo sexual reproduction health training, and we get them empowered, and they can come out and speak. And we see now those girls are very happy, and they possibly of these girls to continue education, unlike this one, who are just being cut and going back to married. And this one will just continue in their educations. And when they continue in education, you have what is called in our programs, or in my normal activities, you will also go to get educations in our society. We have school outreach, and whereby we get empowered to these young girls. You get empower the Morans. You see another picture that there, those who are Morans, those are Morans who have not gone to school. And you see me in a class that is taking initiative, whereby we inform these young men in classes that after these girls graduated after school and they have not undergone their circumcision, it is you who is going to marry this young male, this young female. So we also have to engage the young boys so that they also accept this guy, because one way in the Maasai community why they circumcise, the circumcision is one of the entry point for you to be accepted to be married as a girl. So you have to allow these girls, you have to also educate these boys, and also have these empower them and get informed that when a girl goes through the alternative rite of passage and instead of their cut, they still get married to them. So you also sensitize them. You sensitize also their Morans. You see me there sitting with the Morans and telling them that after you sensitize them and do a dialogue, they share the information and tell them the facts that when a girl is not circumcised, she's also still a complete, she still get married to them. So you have to sensitize them, because these girls will get back to this community and get married to these young men. You have cases whereby some of these girls who are not circumcised, especially there before, currently is at least the trend is going down, because the Morans are really now accepting their girls after the sensitization goes on, but still have cases of such things. We do economic empowerments. We tell these TBAs, these traditional birth attendants, or the one are still the people who do FGM in these girls. The one who attend the during birth are possibly most of them used to do the cut for those women, and sometimes even they do check whether the woman is circumcised, and they definitely sometimes they even can, when you are giving birth, they can even give you a cut at that particular time when you are not a cut. But now we tell them there is an alternative. We see us there having what is called the village loan and saving associations. We tell them, instead of you cutting, you can save the little money we get from either for making that cow, either from having beadworks. You can save, and later maybe annually you can share out, and you can start a small business instead of you going back to give a cut to their girls and look for that as an earning activity. So you have them to show them there is an alternative livelihood instead of the cut. And yeah, again, we have another slide there. Yeah, that is increasing their voice. We sensitize the community for girls to go to school, for them to be able, even these women to be able to protest and give their voice to the community, they can stand. In the Maasai community, a woman who is not at any position cannot stand in front of men. So the only point we realize, a woman can come in front of men and speak, or in front of the society and speak, and can even air their views, is through education. So these girls, when they engage in the education, they can speak to their fathers, they can speak to the community, and they can even stand for their rights and say, this is not right to me. But unlike the one who has just not, the FGM has just cut their life, especially in education system. And I try also to come out with, trying to be fast because I see time has gone. And I have now another spiral that have just come here is an intervention summary on how to break the spiral of girls' disempowerment. We see the inner spiral that's showing especially the, unlike the first one whereby it was cultural. We see the red one is inside, it was controlled by the culture, but now for the last one, it is now the government, the NGOs control about it. And for us to intervene, I try to do some interventions at every point, whereby from number one, instead of girls undergoing their cut, we let them go to school and enroll to school early, so that they not, and then sensitize for alternative right of passage. For alternative right of passage, we try to do a holistic things in the whole community, where we have the community dialogue, we have the moral dialogue, we have the everybody being involved, and then try to make sure that these girls can go away and come to be retained in school. The other point there, outside there, you see school retention. You see, we try to have the rescue center for the girls, especially for those who are going to run away from FGM, the ones who are going to run away from early marriages. We try also to make sure that that is the only intervention that we can do for these girls. And then you also have orphans and vulnerable children, that's the offices, and you have the challenge that is going to be there sometimes is sponsorship and scholarship with these girls. We try to look, and then maybe the government, the CBOs and the community-based organizations and FBOs can also do that. And then from there, when these girls transit, when they go scholarship and they go to schools and then get trained in school and get those to rescue center, they can fully be transit from one level of education to another level of education. You see the outer spiral. They can transit from one level to another, from primary level to secondary level to university. And then definitely that leads to going to number 4, whereby our girls will get an opportunity to engage in business, will get an opportunity to get employment, will get an opportunity to express themselves, and even can have their family planning of their own, of their wish. So they can even control their larger families, unlike the one who has just got married, because we find the girls being the one who are not educated surely get very large families. They can even give to almost 10 children. And the 10 children, they have nothing in the family. Is married to a very old person. Unlike the one who has just gone to school, she'll be able to have an employment, she's able to engage in business, she's able to even manage sexual right and even plan the family. And then girls, that goes to now back to interfere in those. You have the alternative way of earning. You have the income to other generating activity. Instead, going to, now you cut the line from going back to girls, girls to be circumcised, and definitely those after they get their earning, they will not be undergoing again to have circumcising the other girls so that they'll get an earning. They'll have their own way of earning. They are well informed, they have knowledge, they can make decisions, they can generate wealth by themselves. So, and that is how you can end that spiral. Try to come up with some of the solutions so that we can try to bring another spiral whereby, like the one inside, which is disempower the woman, disempower the girls, and that is what we try to do. So that is what we do, and that is what I usually I try to share as a spiral, and And definitely, I think it is very clear for you people. And now that's what I was trying to share and solve, bring the solution of this one, which is being controlled by the culture. And thank you very much.
Thank you.